If you walk down West 134th Street in 1900, you'd see a different Harlem than you know today. It was basically a fortress of white wealth. At the turn of the century, Harlem wasn't a black neighborhood. It was a semi-suburban retreat for the white middle class to escape the hustle and bustle of downtown. And they had one rule, spoken and unspoken: no black tenants. But in 1903, a glitch appeared in their segregated white real estate. It wasn't a law, it wasn't a retreat, it was a petty feud between two landlords who were too busy destroying themselves to realize they were accidentally handing the keys to the kingdom to a black janitor who was about to become the king of Harlem. This is One My Black History. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemyhistory.com. But without further ado, let's get started. To understand the heist, you have to understand the trap. In 1900, if you were black in New York, you were packed into the Tenderloin on West 53rd Street. It wasn't just crowded, it was a setup. The city's white landlords had a policy. They pushed all the vice, the gambling houses, the brothels, specifically into the black neighborhoods. It was a nightmare. If you were a respectable family, maybe you were a doctor or a pastor or a businessman, you still had no choice. You had to raise your family right next door to the local brothel. If you called the police were here to protect the vice. The system was designed to trap black families in the middle of white-owned vice. Then, in 1900, the trap snapped shut. A violent race riot happened. White mobs roamed the street hunting for black people. The black residents looked for help with the police, and the police joined in the mob. Middle-class black folks realized that they weren't just being segregated, they were being hunted, and they needed an escape hatch. But the only way to escape was up. This is where Philip Payton comes in. In 1899, he was basically a nobody. He worked as a porter in a real estate office for about $8 a week. While sweeping floors, he was watching. He saw that in New York, money mattered, but spite mattered more. And this is where the glitch came in. In 1903, a white landlord gets into a feud with his neighbor. He wants to destroy his enemy's property value. So he finds Philip Payton and hands him the management of his building with one specific instruction: fill it with black folks. He thought he was playing a prank on his neighbor with the Spite House, but Payton didn't see the joke. He saw a foothold. He saw a way in. He filled the building with respectable black families desperate to escape the Tenderloin. Then he realized something ruthless. Racism created scarcity, and scarcity created profits. He would charge the black tenants 10% more than the white tenants, but still less than the rent they were paying in the Tenderloin. So they happily paid it to get out of the slums. He branded every single building he conquered with the initials PAP. To white landlords, it was a warning. To black Harlem, it was a signal. You can live here like a human being if you could afford the price. The plan worked well, almost too well. The white neighbors fled, Payton took over their buildings, but the system started to fight back. A powerful conglomerate called the Hudson Realty Company decided to intervene. They were wealthy, they were connected, and they had a specific mission: bleach the neighborhood back white. They didn't hide it. They publicly announced that they were going to buy 3 key buildings on West 35th Street solely to evict the black tenants and reclaim the neighborhood. This was an act of war. Hudson Realty thought Payton was just a broker. They thought that he would fold under the pressure of big money. But Payton didn't fold. He incorporated. In 1904, he founded the Afro-American Realty Company. He issued stock. He raised capital. One man's hustle turned into an incorporated army. And then they executed their pincer move. Hudson Realty evicted black tenants in number 100. Payton would buy number 102 and 104. He would evict the white tenants in the building and move in black families. And we all know exactly how racism works. The white tenants refused to live next door to black neighbors. So their property values crashed instantly. And who was there to purchase the devalued buildings at a discount? Philip Payton, he didn't just survive the war, he bought the entire battlefield. However, when you humiliate the system fights back. In 1906, Payton controlled over $1 million in real estate, but he made one fatal mistake. He assumed the banks were neutral. They weren't. The white financial establishment realized that they could not stop Payton on the streets, so they stopped him in the ledgers. They choked off his credit. Banks refused to refinance his mortgage. The black real estate king was land rich, but cash poor. He was juggling several mortgages like hand grenades, just waiting for one of them to go off. And then the call came from inside the house. It wasn't the white landlords who landed the killing blow. It was his own investors. The shareholders in the Afro Realty Company grew impatient. They didn't care about the social mission. They wanted the dividends. When the profits slowed due to the bank boycott, they turned on him. They sued him for civil fraud. They dragged his name in the mud. The man who liberated Harlem was accused of swindling the very people he was trying to house. The stress didn't just break his bank account. It broke his body. By 1917, Philip Payton was dying of liver cancer. He was only 41 years old, but he looked like an old man. The company had collapsed, the buildings were being foreclosed on, and his dream was dissolving. Most men in his position, sick, sued, and poor, would have gone off to a home to die. This is where Payton had one more move to pull off. From his deathbed, literally weeks before he passed away, Payton pulled off his final impossible deal. He scraped together a last bit of credibility and credit, and he bought 6 massive luxury elevator apartment homes in West 144th Street. They were the crown jewels of the neighborhood, white only, restricted, and off limits. He bought them, and he immediately renamed them after black revolutionaries and poets: Wheatley, Toussaint, Douglas. But his greatest legacy wasn't the names of the buildings, it was the people inside them. Philip Payton died in August of 1917. He never saw what happened next, but he engineered it. You see, historians would talk about the Harlem Renaissance like it was magic, like it was a wave of genius that just washed over the black part of New York. But it wasn't magic, it was logistic. Payton had secured specific blocks, and because he fought to pack black families into a specific neighborhood, he created a critical mass. Suddenly, you had black writers who were living right next door to black musicians and poets and painters and thinkers. They weren't just scattered across the country anymore. They were neighbors. They ate at the same diner. They debated in the same parlors. They played at the same clubs. And iron sharpened iron. And Harlem sharpened black genius. Langston Hughes needed a room to write in. Payton provided that room. Duke Ellington needed a club to play in. Payton provided that club. Philip Payton built the container, and our people consumed that content. Payton would die a financial failure in the eyes of the banks, but he built the stage for the single greatest explosion of black culture the world has ever seen. The white newspapers would call it a Negro invasion. History would call it a Renaissance. Philip Payton, he just called it business. Thank y'all. I'm your host, Country Boy. This has been One Mic Black History. This is the story of the King of Harlem. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. Also, I have a secondary channel. It's called American Underbelly. I would love to see you there. It's going to be amazing. It's not black-centric, but it is talking about corruption, and it does have a leaning towards black stories, but they're not always going to be black history based. Still, it's fire. I like to thank all my financial contributors. Without you, none of this could be possible. I love you all. You're the greatest. Peace.